Today, I'm going to show you how to check the neck relief on your guitar and how to adjust the truss rod to correct it if the relief is wrong. Firstly, what is the neck relief and why is it important? The neck relief is the amount of bow the neck has when the guitar is in tune. The strings create a lot of tension on the neck and it will cause it to bow, making the fretboard concave in shape. If you were to put a ruler on the frets, you would see a gap between the ruler and the frets at the midpoint of the neck. The truss rod is there to control just how much bow there is. It is important to have some bow, as a completely straight neck would require the action to be raised too high to avoid any fret buzz. To do this correctly, you'll need several simple tools. A feeler gauge, which can be purchased from any automotive store. A capo to hold the strings down at the first fret. This will just make taking the measurements that much easier. And the tool for adjusting the truss rod itself. If you have had the guitar from new, this should have been part of the toolkit that came with it. Firstly, you need to make sure that the guitar is tuned. The capo is put on the neck at the first fret. You will then need to hold the string down, in this case the bottom string, at the fret nearest to the point where the neck meets the body. Judge which fret is closest to the midpoint between these 2 points and try to slip the gauge between the string and the fret. The gauge should be set at approximately 0.4 of a millimeter. In this case, the gauge causes the string to rise, which shows that there is not enough relief in the neck and it will need to be adjusted. To do this, we will need to adjust the truss rod. Firstly, you need to identify where the access to the truss rod adjustment is. Sometimes it can be on the headstock, and sometimes it can be at the body end of the neck. In this case, it's the headstock. There is a little plastic cover over the opening, which in most cases will need to be removed. In this case, there is no cover at all. Ibanez has cleverly added a sliding cover, which can just be popped open. No losing any small screws. The next thing to do is to identify what tool is used for adjusting the rod itself. Most European and Eastern sourced guitars use Allen keys. In this case it's 4mm. It may not always be the case. American-made guitars, for instance, will often use imperial-sized Allen keys. Gibson guitars uses a large nut which requires a box spanner, and it's vital to make sure that you have the correct type of tool and the correct size. If you should strip the adjustment nut off the truss rod, you will find yourself unable to make any adjustment at all. In these cases, if you are lucky, you may be able to get the nut off the end of the truss rod and replace it. If you can't, the whole rod will need to be replaced, and this would be very expensive. I have a 4mm ball-ended wrench, which makes the adjustment very much easier. If you're having to apply a great deal of adjustment, and the adjustment nut is becoming hard to turn, then it is becoming necessary to consider that the neck may require more serious attention, and it should be taken to a professional for advice. I can't stress how important it is to be careful when making these kinds of adjustments. To the adjustment itself. As there is almost no relief on this neck, we're going to have to loosen the truss rod and allow the strings to bow the neck further than they are doing at the moment. If the gap between the strings and the fret is too great, the string tension is bowing the neck too much, and we would have to tighten the truss rod to compensate. When you are doing adjustments like this, it is important not to be too heavy-handed and make large adjustments at one go. A quarter of a turn at a time should be what you're looking to do. First, slightly turn the wrench to make sure that the adjustment is working, and then turn the wrench to the left or anti-clockwise to loosen the tension on the rod. 1/4 turn. After this, you need to check the tuning again. Making these adjustments will change the tension of the string and will affect the tuning. Differences in tuning and string gauges can sometimes make a difference to the neck relief, and you should always check it after every string change. This guitar is tuned to D, A, D, G, B, E, or drop D. Now we're going to check to see if the adjustment has made any difference. Some guitars a quarter turn can be enough, but others may require a lot more. In this case, the first adjustment has made some difference, but not enough. I also make a visual inspection to make sure the neck is bowing correctly, along its length and not just in one place. More adjustment is required. This rod has now become quite loose. In this case, we are fortunate that this guitar has what is called a double action truss rod. A double action truss rod allows tension to be put on the neck in both directions, allowing for increased tension to be added to the neck to make the neck bow more and increase the concave of the fretboard. This is useful if the string tension alone is not enough to create the correct relief. We can force the neck carefully into the correct shape. A single action truss rod will only work to pull against the string tension, and if this does not prove to be enough, we may have to compromise the action height to compensate. The only negative about a double action truss rod is that if you strip the adjustment nut, it's impossible to remove it alone, and the whole rod will need to be replaced, so care is needed. I have taken up the slack until the nut starts to tighten up again, and then giving it a quarter turn again to the left. After retuning, I check the neck relief again. As we are now near to the correct setting, I am taking the reading with the guitar in the upright or playing position, so the strings do not droop towards the frets. We are still not there, so a further adjustment is required. Retune and measure again. The feeler gauge will now fit between the frets and the string, touching but not moving the string. The adjustment is complete. If you do not have a feeler gauge, then you can do this roughly by eye. You are looking for a gap about the thickness of a credit card. I would always recommend, however, using the correct tools and never trying to adjust the truss rod without the correct adjustment tool. Look out for further videos in this series. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.